Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look at text in SVG, continuing our series of videos on how to use SVG. And you'll see that we have a basic text element here. We give the X and Y position, which is really the left-hand position for where the text starts. And then the actual text is the content of the text node. A bit later we'll see that there's a rotate option, and there are many styling things you can do here. So we can use all of our CSS style text elements, and font family is what kind of font we're using. The style will give us things like italics, underscore, overscore. I think that one where you have the line through the text, I forget what that's called. The weight, which is like boldness, if it's lighter or bolder. Not sure what font variant is, or stretch. Font size, of course, we know. Not sure about font size adjust. I know what kerning is, but not what the kerning style does. And then letter spacing and word spacing, and the text decoration, which you can apply. So really these are things from CSS, but they'll work within the SVG. Now we've already seen that we can do CSS styles in SVG as standalone attributes where you have attribute equals value, or we can have a style equals, and then that uses the same syntax as within the external CSS style sheet. So that would be attribute colon value, and that's going to be a list typically when you use the style attribute within the CSV element. The SVG element. Sorry, SVG element. And then of course you can use an embedded or external CSS style sheet. Excuse me. There's a sub element called Tspan, which is short for text span. This works the same way that the span element does in HTML. It just allows you to mark an arbitrary string of text to apply a style for it. It has some custom attributes of its own. XY, which is the absolute positions for the characters of the text. And this can be a progression up to one number per character. We'll see that many of the values work that way. You also have dx and dy, which are relative positions. So this would be relative to the normal position of the text. That can also be a progression of values. And then rotate, which we'll look at in depth, also can take a progression. We can have text follow a path, which is really cool. So you can get text that goes in a circle along a curve. It's easy to make text vertical, horizontal, etc. And this is going to be a child node of the text, and use the X-link syntax to link to a path element. I think you can embed a path too. I haven't seen an example of that, but I'm pretty sure you could do that too. So here, if you look at this quick example, I have a path called myPath. Here's the data for that. We've already seen how that works. So we move to this location, then we have a cubic curve that uses these parameters to generate it. And then we have our text path within our text node. And then basically, notice how this works. Xlength href equals pound myPath. That's the ID of the path that we want to use. You know how to use this from HTML, but of course, since we're using SVG, which is XML, we have to use the Xlength namespace for that. Here's the text. It's Groovy Man, and you're going to see that here in a second in my Dreamweaver demo. When you rotate the letters, that works similarly here. You can see here's the rotate attribute within the text node, and it's just a series of values, which is how much to rotate. So what's going on here is these characters, one after another, will be rotated 5 more degrees each. So 0, 5, 10, etc. And the way this works with all of the progressions is you basically just use the values up, and if you have more letters than you have in the progression, the last one applies to all the rest. So if I had a really long string that was longer than this, the rest of the characters at the end of the string would all be rotated 60 degrees. Now you can see here in this example, hello nurse, that's pretty short really. So HELLO space NURSE. And so I actually have two extra values that I'm not going to use here. So all the progressions work that way. If you supply more than one, it exhausts them, and then if there are more characters left, it just applies the last value in the list of values to all the remaining characters. Okay, let's go ahead and look at Dreamweaver here. And I'm just going ahead and using my file from the previous example, so I still have the linear gradients and that in here, but I'm not going to use those. So if we come on down here, the new content is actually quite short, and it's right here. So you can see here that we have the rotate example. So the text is hello Joe, exclamation point, space, what do you know? That's actually a kind of expression from the World War II era. Hello Joe, what do you know? And then that's going to be printed at 230, that's the coordinates. And of course my grid, which I've been using the same grid all along, is 800 by 800. Okay, so this will be kind of towards the upper left corner. It'll start, and this sequence of text will run horizontally, but the individual letters will be rotated, as you see there in the values. And then the font size here is 30. Okay, let's go ahead and look at that, and then we'll come back and look at the other example. I've already pulled it up. Here's the hello Joe, what do you know? And you can see that as the rotation gets high up there, you can't really read it anymore. One of the things that came up when we were talking about this in the classroom session is you might be able to use the SVG very easily to automate the Turing test CAPTCHA, which basically creates text that is hard for a computer to read, and then the human being at the other end has to identify the text, and that's how you tell it's a person and not some sort of bot. Okay, we'll get to this. It's groovy, man. That's our text following a curve. So let's look at how that's done. So again here we're looking at the lower text node here, and right before that I have my path. So this is just like in the PowerPoint that I just showed you. So the path has an ID of my path, and then we move to the first point, and then we have a cubic curve with two control points right here. Okay, and then we have the fill set to none there. That's important because it will fill by default. You can also use transparent. We've seen this already. Here's my text path. There's the X length href, which refers to the ID, so I can use that. And then here's the actual text. It's groovy, man. And then again, when we pull that up, you can see here it's following that quadrant curve. So that's pretty much it. You know, a lot of what I explained wasn't illustrated here, but really it's all pretty much what you should know already from CSS. So it really has very powerful capabilities for playing with text in ways you simply can't do in HTML. Okay, we'll call that one a wrap, and hopefully I'll be able to make a few more here this evening. Alright, hope you're enjoying the series and it's useful for you.